when I first started my business, people were like, what is she doing?
As a millennial girly, I remember Lo Bosworth from reality shows Laguna Beach and The Hills. But you may not know that she's since made a transition into the world of entrepreneurship. Lo chose a very specific and often stigmatized niche: women's vaginal health. Her company, Love Wellness, launched in 2016, making pills and creams to balance your yoni's pH. But then 2 years later, she added wipes. And a few years later, she added supplements for skin health and metabolism health. I wanted to know, can narrowing your focus actually help you go bigger and faster in the long run? And what does it take to identify a specific niche that creates a movement?
Were there things that you had to say no to at the beginning? Like, I want to be able to do this and build this, but we can't do it right now. Maybe we can do it later, but we can't do it now.
I would love to make pink sparkly eyeshadow, but nobody on my team is going to let me make pink sparkly eyeshadow.
Are you serious? Is this a real conversation?
Yes, absolutely. I have always been obsessed with beauty, and I always had a hunch that like maybe I would make products someday.
Okay.
I didn't know what kind of products, but I have that entrepreneurial mind. I was in my bathroom when I was 7, making my own blush with like Vaseline and different eyeshadow palettes and mixing them all together to create my own sort of like new solutions for what I wanted.
So you're having to reel yourself back on the shadow.
From an innovation perspective, I am constantly having to reel myself in.
Okay.
But what I would say is, as you mature in a business, as your business matures, you take on investors, you understand how to build a true growth plan, you understand how to use market data to make better decisions.
Yeah.
So you can't just go off hunches as you continue to move forward. And I think I was really lucky in those first few years because I was just innovating based on my personal needs, but nobody else was at the time.
Yeah.
And so we were really a brand that was standing alone for a very significant amount of time.
But if you look at the trajectory that you've had where you've started specific and then started to expand more products, maybe not the eyeshadow yet. I'm putting yet on it because we can come back to this once you launch the eyeshadow, once it's time for expansion. But if you look at this, like, you're not the only company that has taken that path. That is a really common structure.
Absolutely.
And it's really actually the best way to scale is start specific and then add and then add. If you look at like Facebook, for example, they started just for Harvard students.
Yes.
And then like a couple months later added all like Ivy Leagues, and then they added all universities, and then they added high school students, and now my grandma is on there. And then they've got like VR stuff, and they're doing they bought WhatsApp and Instagram, and like they have so much expansion that they've done now, but they started for like just Harvard students.
Yep.
And I think we forget, like I often tell people, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Like we're looking at like the middle of the brand or like the maturity of the brand. And like, I want to do those things, but they started in a really different way.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it comes down to bandwidth and experience. I was a solo founder and operator for the first 2.5, 3 years of my business.
Yeah.
I literally did everything.
You wore all the hats.
I built the website. I did the CX emails. I did everything.
Yeah.
I worked with our doctors. I worked with our contract manufacturers. I could only do so much, right? I had a very specific vision at that point in time. And it's when my company started to grow and be successful and I could bring more people onto the team that our point of view started to expand, which is such the most beautiful thing about having a team, right? Is that everybody has a different opinion, everybody has a different way to solve a problem, and everyone has a different skill set. Right.
Okay. What was the point of view expansion that happened?
I think just in terms of how do we want to grow this business?
Yeah.
Do we want to have these products be in a retail setting? Do we want to make sparkly eyeshadow in year 4, which thank goodness we did not.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
You've done a good job being focused.
Yeah. Like, the growth of my team has allowed me as a founder and at the time the CEO of the company to get feedback and insight. Like you need a feedback loop.
Yeah.
Because like you can't make good decisions all the time. Not everything you want to build or launch is a good idea. Most of them are stinkers.
Yeah, 100%. And you just have to get like enough like shots on goal to like kind of try to talk something through. Some of them work and some of them don't. Most of them are terrible ideas.
Most of them are not great ideas. Like when we first launched the company, I guess I say we because now I've been with the team for so long and the team is so significant. But when I first launched the company, there was a 6th product.
Okay.
And
because you launched with 5, but you wanted
5
to launch
vaginal health products, and then there was one 6th product that we called Blue Tea, and it was a spirulina drink.
Okay.
And
it got cut.
It got cut. Blue tea was our stinker. Even though spirulina, when you put it into water, has great health benefits, it's detoxifying, it's like chlorophyll water or whatever.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted blue tea. And
Got it.
so the 5 out of the 6 did great.
There's
1 out of the 6,
just
not so great. And then you have to also understand, okay, I have to discontinue certain products that don't do well, that don't, do what I think that they were going to do. But at the time, again, like I was making decisions just based off of my gut and not based on market research or data.
But this is a really interesting, what you're bringing up is another benefit of you starting specific and starting relatively small with like, we're going to do 5 products that are really focused on one thing. One of them is what you're saying, which is that you can then have more space to be hands-on to get the feedback. If you launch 20 products, 10 different products at once, like there's only so much if you're a small team, it's just you, that you can do to get that feedback. I think there are a couple other interesting benefits too. Have you ever watched The Office?
Of course.
Okay, there's this scene in The Office that I really like. They're like pitching a business, and they're talking to the potential customer, and they're explaining why the customer should choose them instead of like a larger competitor. I think we have a video of this. Can we play this really quickly?
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
Do I need to listen?
Yeah, put on your headphones so you can hear this.
Okay.
They call the customer support of the other company and compare their big company customer support to their customer support.
But it makes more fiscal sense to go with one of the big guys.
Sure, that's true. We can't compete with their prices. But let me ask you something. How important to you is customer service?
It's very.
Please keep holding. Your call is very important to us.
It's one of the big guys. Been on hold this whole time.
And this is Dunder Mifflin.
Dunder Mifflin Customer Service, this is Kelly.
Hey, Kelly, it's Jim.
Oh my God, Jim, how are you?
All right.
I love that scene just because it really illustrates like how you can use being a small guy, a niche guy, like to your advantage.
Yeah.
Niche gal in business to your advantage.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think what's interesting when I think about not necessarily customer service or what you can do as a small business, but when I think about innovation, it's not the legacy brands that have brought new innovation to the table. And it's because of exactly what we just showed on that clip, right?
Yeah.
You're a huge company. There's bureaucracy involved.
Yes.
You know how many layers you have to get through to get something done? Ooh. A lot. At a small company, there's very few paths to resistance. You want to do something, you can do it. You can make it happen.
But so many times I talk to entrepreneurs and they're launching a business and they're feeling like maybe imposter syndrome or like not sure about starting specific, starting small and being a smaller brand. And they feel like that's like a negative thing. Yeah. And it is true that like the bigger competitor is going to have an upper hand on you in lots of areas.
Sure.
But like your ability to be like, I'll just get on the phone, I'll call you, here's my phone number, whatever you need to do to get the deal done.
Yeah.
Like that's something that you should leverage and lean into. Like I don't see actually a lot of small businesses using that as a selling point.
I don't disagree with you. I also think as a smaller business, you have the ability to step back from a category, if you're entering into the category, and do some really deep analysis on what the areas of opportunity actually are.
Yeah.
And that's where you focus your business.
Yeah. Because you've done that. Like that's what you did. You were like, here's the specific angle and like lane I want to go play, and I'm not trying to go build like all products for everyone. Here's the gap.
Yep.
Yeah, no, totally. So what are some other ways that you feel like being niche to start worked to your advantage?
I think it's interesting. Like it was both positive and negative.
Okay, let's talk about both sides of it.
Yeah. For me, I was coming off a career on reality television.
Yeah.
And so I think when I first started my business and started talking about it publicly on my social channels, doing interviews, people were like, what is she doing?
Okay.
This is crazy. They didn't think that there was any reason to be playing in that space, that women's products for vaginal health, there wasn't a real need state or like validity behind the sort of like requirement to upgrade products like this.
And so often we see like people come from celebrity launch something that has like more kind of generic and I know this is not like, I don't want to say it's not mainstream because like women are 50% of the population. Right. So that's not the right word, but like you said earlier, like a sexier product that is conventionally sexier product that is like
wine
everybody.
Or whatever.
That's what we typically see from people who transition. They're going from celebrity to entrepreneurship. And you were like, actually, no, I know that the route is we find a lane, you solve a specific problem for a specific kind of person, which is how most businesses get started. And you're like, this is how we're going to go. But I could imagine how I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. I would feel like, do people think I'm like playing too small or doing this? Like, do they think what I'm doing is weird? Did that feel that way?
I think it wasn't about like, am I playing too small? I think the subject matter was still so taboo back then. And I was one of the only people on the internet sharing my story, talking about like UTIs and yeast infections.
Yes.
Right. So the feedback generally, it was like, yeah, girl boss, go. But also, I think that there was a lot of laughing behind the scenes. There was one article in New York Magazine where one of the authors came in and ripped me to shreds, basically saying, like, these products probably don't do XYZ. They're probably not what she says they are, etc. I made the major mistake of hosting editors in my home, a very novice mistake, because then they were making comments about my apartment and articles and stuff.
Oh my gosh, like that has anything to do with the business, right?
I thought,
girl,
oh God, what have I done? So there were a lot of negatives in the early days, but I think part of the sort of like shock and awe of what I was doing at the time really did help to launch the business.
Yes.
And so in a lot of ways, like I took a lot of like early gut punches, but ultimately we have been successful because we launched in 2016. We were first, and we have never pivoted.
Yeah.
In 2024, we're still here. We're one of the biggest. We're one of the best. And like, we have never changed our original mission, vision, values, which is that women deserve better in this category, that what that they were getting was outdated, full of ingredients that we don't believe in, continue to be full of ingredients that we don't believe in from competitive brands.
Yeah.
And that if you apply ingredient superiority, clinical research, the help of doctors, a focus on the microbiome, you can do better for women. And you can do it for about $20 a product.
So I run a company called Apps Without Code. And when we started almost 10 years ago, like the concept of building software without coding was not a thing. Now, like no code is like becoming more popular, but it was just like people thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
I did
How
a
would you
TED
do
Talk.
that?
And like the software engineers just came for my whole life,
I'm
right?
sure.
I'm threatening their jobs now.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And so like but that was very specific. I was like, I specifically help people build apps without coding, but that allowed me to not have to like pivot as much. If I had just built a business about software in general, the market would have changed so much as I was figuring it out.
Totally.
But like being specific kind of allowed me to be like, no, this is the stance. And also being specific, I got a lot of flack for it too.
I'm sure.
Because people were threatened by it. It didn't feel good about it. But it also helped in terms of competitor landscape because it was like, that's specifically what this business is. How do you think about, like, when you think about competitors in your space, like, do you feel like the space, like, that they have a lot over you? They're doing things that are different. How do you think about your competitive landscape?
So I think that some brands have come into the space with really big budgets, specifically like influencer budgets and the ability to do a lot of brand awareness, which is like top of funnel marketing.
Yes.
But a lot of these brands, I don't think have the best interests of their consumers at heart. If you simply look at the types of products that they're making, if you look at the way that they are marketing the products to women, it doesn't feel very good to me, right? If you are a company that sells gummies and you're trying to tell a woman that this is the way to taste great for your boyfriend, like there's a lot of BS happening there.
What other brands are kind of in this space?
There's a number of brands. So some of our competitors are the Honey Pot, which is Beatrice's company, which is a good brand. You have Rail, you have Hum, you have O Positive, you have Lemmy. And it's a crowded space at this point. And the differentiating factors for us still come down to ingredient superiority, using great research to formulate products. And at this point now, we're putting all of our products through independent third-party clinical studies. And I think we're one of the only brands that's doing that to be able to prove to consumers that like our products do what we say that they can do. Because when you come into the space and you look at a brand that's having success and you say, okay, I'm going to take pieces of that, but you create formulations that are really no good and tell women they're still going to work, like that's you're not
working for you.
You're not doing what you say you're doing. You're not giving women what they deserve. Like you're not doing better on their behalf. And like that is so disheartening to me.
I want to give you a quick kudos because you're so good at like when you talk about competitive landscape about like there's like a sophisticated, it's not shade, but a little bit of like sophisticated shade about like, this is what I don't like about what's happening in the landscape. And like, I'm not pointing fingers, but like, this is what's not working for me about the industry. I think you having such a firm stance on that, that's another differentiator that I'm just hearing in the brand and you guys being like, no, this is what we stand for. And standing for something starts with you saying, here's specifically who we're for, what we're building, and being like not afraid to be specific. I think it starts there. All of that seems like it's part of the culture of the business, that we are going to take a stand about something. Here's what we don't like. Here's what we do like. And there's this like common startup advice to like pick an enemy. And it doesn't have to be like that dramatic, but essentially like here's what's happening in the industry that we don't like. And here's maybe a couple companies that are big incumbents that do that we don't like. Do you feel like you take on that strategy? Does that like that's what I'm looking at from the outside?
I think that we have been forced to realize that we have to take on a strategy like that. When we are a really early company in this space and companies come after you, I think you at first kind of feel like, oh my God, like people have stolen all of my ideas. This is so disappointing. But the reality is that they're actually getting more eyes on the category and that they're most likely is room for a number of competitors, right? But I think your idea on being able to identify your differentiation is incredibly important, and speak to your differentiation, right? For me, I am the anti-gummy queen. And I will tell you a story about gummy vitamins. We were seeing the rise of gummy vitamins happen fast, right? It's a very popular format.
And they're like cute and
They're cute. They taste okay. The reality about gummy vitamins is not very good when it comes to actual health benefits. But that is maybe a story for another time. But we saw this quick rise in gummy vitamins happening, and we thought maybe we need to be in the gummy vitamin business. And so we took our sleep product, Sleeping Beauty, and we created a gummy format, a version of it. And it was this like falls on me. We hadn't done the research on how much sugar was in a gummy
to make it taste good or reasonably good.
And so like we brought a very limited run of these gummies to market, and I very quickly soured on the concept of gummies once I was doing a deeper dive on the ingredient lists.
Pun intended
and
on
the types
sour.
of like there's corn syrup, there's tapioca, there's sugar, real or artificial.
So it didn't align to the brand.
It didn't align to our brand values. And so I made the decision that even though gummies are a great place to be in to grow a business because they taste good, they don't deliver on benefits.
Yeah.
And so we discontinued our sleep gummy within a year of putting it out in market because we decided what are our brand mission, vision, values? Yeah. Women deserve better. And this product is not giving women what we deserve. And so we as a brand are going to discontinue this product. And now we have a firm anti-gummy stance.
Got it. But you know your audience then. You know what they're aligned to. You know what they're not aligned to. And so they come to you because they have those same values. And that's how you kind of create your tribe, by being specific, by taking a stand.
Yeah.
There's an activity that I like to do to like figure out how to get to the level of specificity of where to start. There's this article that my friend Ania wrote, actually, and there's a part where she's talking about ConvertKit. ConvertKit is this company that they like compete with MailChimp.
Okay.
And so MailChimp is a huge player in the space of sending out emails and like newsletters. And so they had to compete with them. And so the article says, I remember hearing the CEO of ConvertKit talk in an interview about how they narrowed down their initial niche to be perfect for direct sales. So their target customer when they started wasn't just professional bloggers who wanted to send emails, but professional recipe bloggers. And not just professional recipe bloggers, but professional paleo recipe bloggers. And still that wasn't specific enough to start. So they went for professional paleo recipe bloggers who are women. Like that's who they started with as a target audience. And I think maybe that's like really specific, but what I love about that is that there's 4 layers of specificity, right? Like there's bloggers, professional bloggers, professional bloggers, recipe bloggers, paleo recipe bloggers who are women. There's like 4 layers of specificity.
Yeah.
And if I go back and it's easier to kind of look at this in hindsight, but you can do a lot of like case studies of businesses to see what you should do for your own business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I go back and I look at the Facebook example, for example, there's like students. Second level is college students. Third level is college students who go to Harvard, and then like college students who go to Harvard who are like listed in the dorm directories, which is where he got all of the people from to start with. Or if I think about my own business, right? Like when we started, it was like women and people of color who don't code, women and people of color who don't code, who like work in certain industries, usually like healthcare, manufacturing, or education, typically. And then women, people of color, don't code, work in those industries, and have an idea for software that could make their job better.
Yeah.
And like that 4th layer was like, boom, bullseye, right in where we should start.
Yep.
Because that community of people like gives you the insights about like, actually, we're with you that we don't want gummies.
100%.
Actually, we're with you that we don't want these things. If you think about if we had to like make 4 layers of going back how you started, women is maybe a layer, of course.
Yeah, I would say it's women who are interested in improving their health and well-being on a everyday basis with a routine.
Okay.
Who are interested in modern solutions based on emerging research.
Okay.
Made with ingredient superiority. So I would say that like at the very bottom of that funnel is that if you are a woman who has switched to clean beauty, you're going to want love wellness in your life because we are the parallel to that in the wellness space.
Okay, I love what you just said, because the whole point of like going to that 4 layers of specificity is it becomes significantly easier to market when you're at that level.
Yes.
So what you just said, when you got to that 4th level, you're like, oh, okay, someone who's interested in like clean beauty or clean products, that's our person. So now you can go run an ad to people who like these other products because they probably will like yours.
Yes.
Or you can go reach out to them more organically because you see that they post this certain product or bought this certain product. Like that's how you can get to, I would say, more affordable marketing, because if you're more specific with your marketing, you can go straight to it. You may not have like a humongous budget like your competitors do, but the specificity makes marketing easier, which is the whole reason why they say the riches are in the niches.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I want to invite everyone listening and watching this to participate in this. So if you come to YouTube, we can see the comments, and I would love for you to take a stab at writing for your own business idea or current business. What are like the 4 layers of specificity that you can get to? Like, women, this, that, who like this, who also do this. Like, put your 4 layers in there of specificity, with the fourth one being the most detailed.
Yeah.
So we can kind of see, like, if you were going to be really, really specific and niche to start, to target a certain customer, who would it be? We can kind of community share, and would love to see what you
I
guys
love
say.
that. That's like a really good exercise. And you put me on the spot. I was like, oh, thank God I know who my customer is.
Okay, but you were ready to go. You really know that.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you were giving me the examples, I was like, I know she's going to ask me to do this.
Yeah. But you can go back. You can trace like so many companies. Like Nike did that. Like athletes,
Totally.
track and field athletes that go to college, track and field athletes that go to, specifically when they started marketing, like University of Oregon, which is where Nike was based, right? Like you can see how people are doing this, and maybe they're not talking about it. Like this is what you say in the brand conversation when you're talking internally.
Yeah.
You don't put this out externally. You don't even have to say that the company is only for these people on the packaging.
Correct, yeah.
But internally, you got to know who you're talking to. Otherwise, you're not able to leverage the benefits of being small, like the Office clip, or you're trying to compete with big players.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people think, though, that if you go niche and start niche, you can't be massive as a business, or you can't like come up with a master plan to scale.
I think that's false.
Yeah.
I think that if you're niche in a significant category, that is false, because your niche item can come to dominate the category.
Right. And the category's big, so there's a lot of space for you.
Right. So here's an example. We make a boric acid suppository called the Killer.
Yeah.
And at Target in the last 2 years, our boric acid suppository, and it's because it's in multiple places in the store, was the #1 vaginal suppository at Target. Mm-hmm. And this is against vaginal suppositories that have been on shelf for decades.
Yeah.
So, right, like we were one of the first brands to bring boric acid to market in 2016. By 2022, that hyper niche product is the #1 selling product in the vaginal suppository space at that retailer.
You killed that category for the retailer. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
So your niche product can take over a category as long as the category exists.
Okay, that's a really good distinction too, right?
I think
if you're going niche in a category that's really small, like there's not ever going to be a lot of people who want to buy this. That's one thing. But there's a lot of people, like women, or 50% of the population is a large category.
Right.
Target is a large distributor, and so women who shop at Target is already a big market. And if you can just crush that, that is a solid business.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. There is, I don't know, depending on what you think and how you feel about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is controversial, but there is some public writings that he's done earlier on in Tesla's age that I think have been really interesting, because he's very good at publicly sharing like what the scaling plan is going to be. So there's this post that he wrote. It's public, like on the Tesla blog.
Yeah.
And he did a part 1 and a part 2. So what I'm talking about is, like, he calls it master plan part 2. Is what it is. So the master plan, it starts and it has like, he references the first version of the master plan that he wrote and links to it. And he's essentially like, when we started, we had this plan that had 4 steps to it. It was like first step was to create a low volume car, which would be expensive. So like there's not a lot of it, it's niche, but it's pricey. And then step 2 is to use that money that comes from that car, from generated revenue, to develop a medium volume car at a lower price. So like once you get, the hard thing with car production is like the manufacturing of it all. And so you do one that's expensive but smaller batches, and then you can do a medium volume car at lower price. And then the third one is, and then use that money to create an affordable high volume car. And then the number 4 is like provide solar power. No kidding. This has literally been on our website for 10 years. So like they're like, here's where we're trying to go. Here's the like eventual eyeshadow that we're going to. But like here are the steps of how we're going to get there in a way that makes business sense. And he's commented on this and been like, well, the reason we started with step 1 was like that was all we could afford to do at the time. He took his considerably large PayPal earnings and put it into Tesla. But still, like you've got to like focus resources. Yeah. And that was all they could do. And having a low volume car meant that they could have like a more a simpler factory. And you have to build out this whole complex factory. And so he was like, he laid out in advance, like, here's how we're going to start small, add more, add more, add more.
Yeah.
Did you have a scaling master plan?
Not at the beginning.
Yeah.
Are you joking?
So it was more like what you're going through at the time, and your personal story. Talk to me about how like your personal.
Yeah, but like Elon came from PayPal. Like he had like decades of business experience.
So I
started my company when I was 28, I can't remember how old. 29 maybe?
Yeah.
And up until that point, my experience was in entertainment, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not working in a corporate environment looking at a P&L and understanding how to build a budget and how to build that 10-year roadmap.
Yeah, 10 years. But I'm just trying to get through like this week, this month, this quarter.
I started the company based off my personal need state, these discoveries I had had after such a long and painful health struggle, but then finally finding a path forward.
Yeah.
So the difference is staggering.
100%. I think it's a good example to look at if you want it like the other extreme of like, if I were really calculated, this is what it could look like. But I love your example even more because it's so much more relatable in that you're like, I'm going to take it as I go.
Yeah.
We're going to launch something. I'm going to check in with myself, which is such a like women intuition, by the way. Like I'm going to check in with myself. What are the things going on in my life that I could use a product for? And then we can use that as a map and figure out how to expand and scale by listening to the audience and also listening to myself.
Yeah, totally. And also when it comes to my company, the products we were making were pretty much all new products.
Yeah.
We've been making cars for a really long time.
Yeah,
right?
That's
And
right.
so
That's right.
I think you have to consider that also in terms of the category that you sit in. Are there case studies that you can look at that you can map against?
Yeah.
Or is there nothing?
Is there nothing?
And
maybe,
for us, there was nothing.
And so maybe if you're playing in a more innovative space, you don't want to come up with this exactly how we scale step-by-step plan. You just kind of want to take it as you go and expand as you go. We're going to wrap up here. I've learned so much about like the incredible business savvy businesswoman that you are. It's really cool to hear.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm excited to see everybody's what they've learned from this conversation and how your own planning of your 4 levels and also competitor enemies in the chat.